When someone says the fight of the century, what do you think of? Ali versus Frazier? Mayweather versus McGregor? Well, today, we're looking at a different kind of fight of the century. This fight has nothing to do with athleticism or sportsmanship, but something far more important: the lives of women and the unborn. For almost half a century, Christians in their pro-life position have gone head-to-head with the secular pro-abortion view in a litany of social, legal, and scientific skirmishes. It makes many ask, is what's found in the womb at conception considered human?
In a womb of a pregnant woman, what exists?
A human life.
As we saw before, the science clearly says yes. But science is not the only thing used to defend either position. Can logic weigh in and determine the winner of the fight of the century?
When do you think a human becomes a person? Do you believe that it's dependent at all on the size?
I don't know about size so much, but probably development.
Pro-choice people would say, well, they're not human yet because they're too small to be human. Do you think that that makes sense, or do you think that doesn't make sense?
I mean, I don't think that makes sense at all.
When do you think a human becomes a person? Is it determined at all by their size?
Once there's like a good enough development where the baby can live on its own outside of the womb.
So like if a person's shorter than you, do you think that would constitute them being less human because they're not the same size?
No, because everybody's different. Everybody is different sizes.
Is size relevant to human value?
No, not at all. Think about it for a moment. Do we think that former basketball star Shaquille O'Neal, who's 7'2", is more human and valuable than all of us simply because he's a foot taller? No, we don't. So as a matter of rationality and principle and clear thinking, body size isn't relevant to the status of the unborn.
Do you think a person's value is determined by their level of development?
I'd have to say yes.
What about level of development?
Well, certainly the embryo differs from us in terms of its development. An embryo doesn't have cognitive powers that you and I have.
It can't think or comprehend anything.
But how does your development determine what you are? We don't think that a 2-year-old girl who lacks a developed reproductive system is less human and valuable than a 21-year-old young woman who does.
Imagine we got a 3-year-old girl who walks up here and then a 23-year-old girl. Which one has more value? Because there's different levels of development. Is that woman more of a human than the 3-year-old?
No.
I mean, they're both valuable.
Even though their level of development's different, they have the same value?
Right.
Your development is unique to that stage of your life, but it tells us nothing about what you are.
The same thing, when you start out with the embryo earlier, you said, yeah, that is a full human person, even though it's not got eyes and ears like maybe we have. It's just less developed, but it's still human.
A lot of people think that just because they point out a difference between you, the embryo, and you, the adult, they've refuted the pro-life argument. No, they have to show us why those differences matter in the first place. It's not enough just to point out a difference.
So then, what does the Bible say about the value of human life in regards to the stage of development?
All human beings have intrinsic value, meaning they're valuable simply because they're human, because they bear the image of God. That's the clear teaching of Scripture. Scripture does not link the image of God to cognitive ability, physical development, or anything else people pick out to disqualify the unborn. It simply teaches that all humans have value because of whose image we bear. Therefore, if the unborn are human, they too are image bearers.
Another argument people use is location, right? Maybe a baby outside of the womb, you might be a human, but inside the womb, maybe not. Do you think location changes the value of a human life?
No. Even if it's in the womb, it's still a human.
I feel like inside the womb, there is a point where that becomes a human life and that is valued.
When it's in the mother's womb, it's the mother's choice.
People love to say that where the child resides makes a difference. I want to know why. How does where I am determine what I am? For example, suppose we do fetal surgery on a child in the womb suffering from a herniated diaphragm. We remove that child from the womb, we fix the problem, and we put him back, and he's born naturally at the appointed time. Does that child go from being non-human while it's in the mother, briefly to being human while we do the surgery, and back to being non-human again? I mean, this is absurd.
there are people who don't live in our country. Are they considered less human because they're in a different place?
Oh no.
You see how, like, location, if I'm inside the womb or outside the womb, right? I don't think you're any less human if you're inside or outside.
What does the Bible say about the value of human life regarding the environment?
Absolutely nothing. I mean, does a person residing in Jerusalem somehow become less of a person if he moves to Jericho? Again, where you are has no bearing on who you are as an image bearer.
Embryos are completely dependent on the mother. Do you think level of dependency has anything to do with the value of a human life?
No.
How do we hear the degree of dependency argument phrased?
People love to say that because the child depends on its mother, it has no rights. But again, how does it follow that because you depend on another human being, we can slit your throat? For example, what about conjoined twins that are joined perhaps at the hip area? They depend on each other's bodily systems to survive. Can we intentionally kill them simply because neither twin can live without the other? And furthermore, what about a patient on kidney dialysis? Does he fail the right to life because he has to live dependent on a machine?
What about newborns and toddlers? Can they survive without their parents' help?
No, I wouldn't think so.
So you see how they are just as dependent as a baby in the womb?
Yeah, makes sense.
So what does the Bible say about level of dependency and the value of a human life?
Again, it doesn't anywhere say you lose the image of God simply because you depend on another human being. Did the Good Samaritan treat a non-person when he got off his horse, got down in the dirt to help a fellow traveler who needed him and who was dependent on him? The Bible makes no such claim.
Can you recap each of the SLED arguments for the value of human life?
We argue that there's no essential difference between you, the embryo, and you, the adult, that would justify killing you back then. Differences of size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependency are not good reasons for saying you could be killed then, but not now.
Attempting to use the pro-choice criteria for personhood, size, level of development, environment, and degree of dependence, we see that it's used to disqualify the weak and vulnerable from having any value. Logic was unable to prove that there is a morally significant difference between the unborn you in the womb and the adult you that you are today.